The congressional hearing room was drenched in that kind of silence only power could command. Cameras buzzed faintly in the background, the red recording lights blinking like restless eyes waiting for history to unfold. The air was thick, not just with the scent of coffee and polished oak, but with tension, pride, and the heavy anticipation of confrontation. Mark Levan adjusted his glasses, his reflection catching the glow of the overhead lights. A man built on conviction and radio charisma, he had spent decades molding public opinion with words sharp enough to slice through steel. Today, those same words would be tested before the nation, not through a microphone in his studio, but through sworn testimony under oath. Across from him sat Representative Jasmine Crockett, her calm presence a striking contrast to the storm around her. Her posture was precise, confident without arrogance, her hands resting gently on the folder before her. She had become one of Congress's most watched figures, brilliant, composed, unflinching when facing men who underestimated her. And Mark Levan, despite his reputation, had no idea what awaited him. The chairman cleared his throat, his gavel striking the desk like the countdown to a duel. "Mr. Levan, you may begin." Mark leaned forward, his deep baritone voice resonating through the chamber. "Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's time the American people hear the truth, unfiltered, unmanipulated, and unapologetic." Every camera lens pivoted toward him. Journalists leaned in, pens poised. His voice carried weight, his cadence deliberate, each syllable polished through years of radio mastery. "For too long," he began, "we've watched this government twist our Constitution into something unrecognizable. We've seen politicians turn patriotism into performance, truth into theater, and with all due respect to Representative Crockett," he looked directly at her, "I'm not here to play along." The air froze. A few murmurs rippled through the audience. Crockett didn't flinch. She merely lifted her eyes, studying him the way a chess master studies a bold, reckless opening move. "Proceed, Mr. Levan," the chairman said, slightly uneasy. Levan continued, "I've built my life defending the Constitution, not interpreting it based on political convenience. But what's happening in this chamber, in this government, is an erosion of everything our founders stood for." His hand sliced through the air, as if he were cutting through the fabric of corruption itself. "This isn't about left or right, it's about power. And Representative Crockett, you and your allies have been wielding it recklessly." Crockett's gaze didn't waver. Her calm unnerved him. He had debated senators, grilled governors, and humiliated countless pundits live on air. But something about her composure felt unshakable, almost surgical. She wasn't just listening, she was dissecting him. When her turn came, the microphone light blinked red in front of her. "Thank you, Mr. Chairman," she said softly, her voice controlled, almost too calm for the tension in the room. "Mr. Levan, I appreciate your passion for the Constitution, but passion without precision often leads to confusion." Her words landed like quiet thunder. She opened her folder and glanced at a page, not to read, but to time her pause. "You've made a career out of interpreting the Constitution for millions," she continued. "But what concerns me today isn't your rhetoric, it's your accuracy." The audience shifted. Journalists raised their cameras again. The duel had begun. Levan leaned back, smirking slightly. "Accuracy, Representative Crockett, is a matter of perspective." Crockett tilted her head. "No, Mr. Levan, it's a matter of fact." The words cut cleanly through the air. There was no anger in her tone, just certainty, the kind that silences even the loudest rooms. She continued, her voice steady and deliberate. "You've claimed repeatedly that this committee has overstepped its constitutional limits. But the very document you invoke, Article 1, Section 8, explicitly grants Congress oversight authority over the matters we're discussing today. Would you like me to read it for you?" A faint smirk vanished from Levan's face. He adjusted his glasses again, suddenly less comfortable. "I'm aware of what it says," he replied, his tone hardening. "Then you must also be aware," Crockett said, leaning slightly forward, "that misrepresenting constitutional authority to millions of listeners is not just irresponsible, it's dangerous. Words move people, Mr. Levan. And when those words distort the truth, they don't defend democracy, they poison it." A low murmur spread through the crowd. The camera zoomed in on Levan's face, the flicker of irritation beneath his practiced composure. Crockett didn't break eye contact once. She was surgical, precise, elegant, and ruthless in her restraint. He tried to regain control, his voice rising. "I will not be lectured about democracy by someone who—" But Crockett interrupted softly, her tone sharper than any shout. "This isn't a lecture, Mr. Levan. It's a reminder that the Constitution doesn't belong to one ideology. It belongs to the people." The silence that followed was deafening. Even the chairman sat frozen, hands clasped under his chin. Crockett's next words came quietly, almost like a whisper meant for the whole country to hear. "You've built a platform on conviction, and I respect that. But conviction without truth isn't courage, and it's chaos." The cameras caught every word. Social media, still unaware of the storm brewing, would soon explode with clips of this exchange. But in that moment, it was just them. A man who had mastered the art of the microphone and a woman who had mastered the truth. Levan's jaw tightened. He leaned closer to his microphone. "You're twisting my words. I stand by what I've said. This Congress is abusing its power." Crockett nodded slowly. "And I stand by mine. This Congress is fulfilling its duty. The difference, Mr. Levan, is that I can prove it." She opened another page, reading an excerpt. Direct quotes from his radio segments, each followed by precise factual corrections. Each word landed like the strike of a gavel. Levan tried to interrupt, but she didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Her authority came not from volume, but from control. When she finally stopped, the silence that followed was overwhelming. Levan exhaled, his usual confidence faltering. He looked down, then back up. The fight still burning, but the footing clearly slipping. "This isn't over," he muttered. Crockett's expression softened, almost compassionate. "I hope not," she said quietly. "Because democracy doesn't end when we disagree. It begins there." The words hung in the air, suspended between confrontation and truth. For the first time, Mark Levan, the man who had made a career of having the last word, had none. The chairman cleared his throat, unsure how to proceed. "We'll take a short recess," he announced. The gavel struck. Cameras flashed. Reporters erupted into whispers as Levan stood, visibly frustrated, trying to reclaim his composure. Crockett gathered her papers calmly, the faintest trace of a smile curving her lips. Outside, the world was already spinning. Networks were cueing clips, anchors rehearsing headlines. In minutes, the nation would see what had just happened. Not a shouting match, but a moment of quiet, devastating clarity. And this was only the beginning. The hum of conversation filled the marble hall outside the chamber. Reporters swarmed like bees around both camps, microphones and cameras flashing, every network desperate to frame the story before the next round began. The air smelled of nerves and coffee, the scent of Washington on the brink of a viral storm. Inside a quiet side room, Mark Levan stood before a mirror. His reflection stared back, composed yet cracked. He had been challenged before, humiliated never. His hands gripped the edge of the sink. Behind the glass, he could hear faint murmurs of producers and aides trying to spin the break as media bias. But even he knew the first round hadn't gone his way. He closed his eyes. "Stay calm. She's just another politician," he whispered to himself. But deep down, he knew she wasn't. Jasmine Crockett had turned his signature strength, words, into his weakness. She didn't yell. She didn't attack. She simply dismantled him with reason, her composure turning his fury into noise. A staffer peeked in. "Mr. Levan, they're ready to resume." He straightened his tie, nodded, and walked out, each step echoing like a drumbeat toward redemption. Back inside, the room had reset. The chairman's gavel struck again. Cameras turned. Every seat was filled. This was round 2, and everyone could feel it. "Mr. Levan," the chairman said, "you may continue." Mark leaned forward, his voice measured, quieter than before. "Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be brief." The chamber braced itself. "I came here to speak for millions of Americans who feel unheard, not to argue semantics or to be silenced by clever phrasing. Representative Crockett may be an expert in procedure and law, but I speak for those who live outside this room, who've lost faith in what it stands for." Crockett watched him closely. This wasn't the bombastic voice from before. This was calculated restraint crafted to reclaim control. He went on. "They don't care about sections or clauses. They care about fairness. about being forgotten, and I won't let Washington's intellectual elite lecture them into silence. The last words hung in the air like an accusation. Some in the audience nodded faintly. Others frowned. Crockett slowly leaned forward, hands folded. When the chairman gave her the floor again, the air temperature seemed to drop. "Mr. Levan," she began, her tone gentle. "I appreciate your concern for the people. But fairness," she paused, "isn't the opposite of truth. It's built on it." Levan didn't interrupt this time. Her calm unnerved him more than confrontation ever could. "I grew up watching people struggle too," she continued. "But when we tell them something false, even if it feels right, we betray them twice. First with the lie, and second with the comfort of believing it." Her words landed not like punches, but like quiet confessions. Even those who came to defend Levan now listened differently. She turned a page. "You said the Constitution is being twisted. So let's look together, not as opponents, but as citizens." She read aloud from the document itself. Each word echoed, timeless and untouchable. "To make all laws which shall be necessary and proper. That's not a loophole, Mr. Levan, it's a responsibility." She looked up. "And when you tell your listeners that oversight is tyranny, you take that responsibility and turn it into a weapon." Levan clenched his fists. "So now patriotism is a crime?" "No," Crockett said softly. "But misinformation is a betrayal." Her tone was quiet, painfully so. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was sacred. It was the kind of silence where truth stands alone, needing no applause. Levan tried to speak, but no words came. He glanced toward the cameras and his usual allies, but even they seemed colder now. For the first time in his career, his message wasn't carrying. It was collapsing under the weight of her composure. Crockett didn't gloat. She didn't smile. She simply continued with that same steady calm that had defined her every word. "You have power, Mr. Levan, more than most elected officials. When you speak, millions listen. That's a gift and a burden. But when you use that voice to divide, not to inform, you stop being a patriot and start being a performer." Levan looked down, silent. "And if you truly love this country," she said softly, "you'll understand. Truth isn't your enemy. It's your duty." That sentence broke the last line of his defense. Across the chamber, even some of his supporters shifted uncomfortably. The cameras caught every detail. His trembling hand, his downcast eyes, the quiet exhale that said it all. She had done it, not through anger, but through grace. The chairman, visibly moved, cleared his throat. "We thank both parties for their testimony." But before he could end the session, Levan spoke, his voice hoarse, stripped of performance. "Representative Crockett," he hesitated. "You're right, maybe I lost the point somewhere along the way." The room froze. Nobody expected it, not from him. Crockett looked at him gently. "It's never too late to find it again." And with that, she gathered her notes, stood and left the chamber, quiet, dignified, untouchable. Outside, the world erupted. Every network looped her words. "Truth isn't your enemy. It's your duty." Within hours, it was everywhere. Headlines, hashtags, videos, podcasts. Commentators called it the moment that ended the debate. Others called it the calm that silenced the fire. Mark Levan returned to his studio weeks later, his tone subdued, his rhetoric softened. For the first time in years, he opened his show not with outrage, but reflection, and somewhere far from the noise, Jasmine Crockett stood before her office window overlooking the Capitol. Her phone buzzing endlessly with notifications she didn't bother to check. She had done what few ever could, defeated fury with calm. Not by shouting louder, but by speaking the truth more quietly than anyone expected. In a city built on noise, her silence had become the loudest sound of all.